And welcome back to Love Your Food. This week we are doing a beautiful and pretty simple baked beans recipe. Now, I know a lot of people's first exposure to baked beans is in a can, and they're kind of mushy, and they come with some kind of sad little chunks of hot dog in them. Well, this is a homemade version that is way more delicious, and we're going to start off here with our ingredients. So we're going to start off with some beans. We've got navy beans, a little bit of white vinegar, some pickled jalapenos and carrots, some tomato paste, some grainy mustard, some brown sugar, and ours is a little bit hard, but we've got some cinnamon, a whole clove, and a star anise. We're going to use some onion, some poblano peppers, shallot, and some roast pork. Now, the pork can be a lot of different things, and we'll go over that when we get to that part of the recipe. But the first thing we're going to do is start off by rinsing off the beans. Now, you want to make sure the beans are nice and clean. They frequently have little bits of dirt on them, sometimes even bugs. So make sure you're cleaning your beans really, really well. This goes for any kind of dry beans that you buy. You want to make sure they're clean, not dusty, not dirty, any of those sort of things. So we're going to make sure we rinse them really, really well until the water runs clean, and then we're going to cover them with water in a pot. Now, we want some a pot that's pretty deep, some good high sides on there, because the beans can sort of boil up as they boil. And we do want to boil them. We don't want to just simmer them. We really want them boiling, not a heavy rolling boil like this, but a steady low boil. You do want to stir them every once in a while just to make sure they're not going to boil over, they're not sticking to the bottom or anything. And when they start to look a little bit like this, they're just about ready. Now, you can cook them to whatever softness you want. They're not going to get a whole lot softer in their second cooking in the casserole dish. Sorry about that. I let the steam hit the camera. Now, our sugar is very, very hard right now, so we're going to soak it with the vinegar. They're all going to end up in the same thing anyway. And that will sort of help it soften up a little bit. We're just going to let it sit for a bit and let that soften up while we get our other things ready. We're going to start off with the poblano peppers. And like usual, we're just going to cut them into panels, cut the middle bit out, and cut the stem off. And then we're just going to cut the panels into sticks and the sticks into dice. There we go. And then into the sticks. And then we'll cut the sticks into dice. And this is going to cook pretty much into the dish. It's going to form the gravy. Something soft like peppers will definitely sort of blend in pretty nicely. Now, for a little bit of heat and some of that, a little bit of extra vinegar zing, we're going to put these pickled carrots and pickled jalapenos. And we're just going to add that in as well. Again, a pretty fine dice. And the carrots will add a little bit of interesting texture and, again, a little bit of that heat from the jalapenos and that nice sour zing from the vinegar in there. So you can see our brown sugar is finally getting a little bit softer, so we're going to add in our veggies on top of that once we've got it into kind of a paste in there with the vinegar. We're going to add in our spices, so in goes the cinnamon, the whole clove, and the whole star anise. And then we're going to grate the shallot and the onion. So we're just going to run those through a grater. You can do the fine side of a grater if you prefer. And this just helps it to really spread through the whole recipe, the whole dish a little bit better. So you can see here it is just a little bit finer than if you chopped it. And that just really helps it spread all the way through. A little bit of salt, actually quite a bit of salt, because beans will soak up a lot of salt. So a fair amount of salt. And then once your beans are cool enough to handle, we're just going to drain those. Now, if you have a reason to use aquafaba, you can hold on to the aquafaba from these and use that. But we didn't for this one, so we're just going to toss our beans, our drained beans, into our bowl here with all of our beautiful ingredients. And we're just going to add in our tomato paste. Now, this is a particularly dense, concentrated tomato paste. If you're using a can of tomato paste, it's probably, this recipe will use a whole can of tomato paste, which is great. Most of those recipes tend not to use the whole can, and then you're left with part of a can of tomato paste with a sad little bit of saran wrap on top. So this recipe, just add the whole can of tomato paste. You have those little tiny cans of Unico tomato paste. Use the whole thing. We're going to add in our mustard. And we're just going to stir this all together until it's all well combined. And you do want to make sure it's well salted. Taste it a couple times because the salt will help the liquid come out of the vegetables and just help it remain juicy. So now we're going to do our pork. Now we got this beautiful roasted, basically hot smoked bacon from a local provider. And it was delicious. But you can use anything you want for this. You can use regular bacon. You can use roast pork. You can use our sous vide char siu recipe. I'll put a little link in the in a card just above us here. Whatever you prefer for this, any kind of roast pork or bacon is going to work well for this. You want something that's kind of fatty. It just has a lot more flavor, a little bit more texture. You can see a lot of the fat in there, and it's going to render and make the juice, make the whole dish a little juicy. A little bit of black pepper on there. And just stir this until it's all well combined and that pork just runs all the way through your dish. And then we're going to toss this into a casserole dish. So once everything is well combined, you can see here it's all just perfect. It's all well mixed, nicely distributed. We're just going to pop that into a casserole dish. And then this is going to go into our preheated oven. So once you've got that all in there, you want to try and make sure there aren't any big air bubbles or anything in there. So just give it a good pat, make sure it's pretty level on top. And then we're going to put that, just in case, we're going to put that on a baking sheet in case it spills over or boils over or anything like that. It didn't. It's not going to rise a whole lot or anything. It's not going to boil over much. And we're going to take that out when it is nice and toasty on top. So basically, you're going to put it into the oven until it's cooked all the way through, until it's hot all the way through. You've got that nice toasty bit on top. And then when you serve it, you have that beautiful pork in there, all those amazing veggies, that tomato paste. And this is definitely a really good homemade version of baked beans. Again, we used these navy beans, which is pretty traditional for this. And you could do this with other kinds of beans as well, or pinto beans, and we hope you'll give this one a try. If you like this recipe, please do like and subscribe, and if you have any recipes you'd like to see Chef Caleb try on the channel, please let us know in the comments below. Thanks again to our patrons. If you would like to support us on Patreon, I will put a link in the description below, and remember to love your food.